All right, let's jump into today's Cybersecurity HQ news, hot off the press for November 6th, 2024.
Definitely a busy news cycle today.
Oh yeah, so let's not waste any time. First up, Google Cloud is going all in on MFA.
Yeah, they're mandating multi-factor authentication for all users by the end of 2025.
Big move. So how's that going to roll out? I mean, that's a lot of users to wrangle.
Well, they're taking a phased approach. This month, it's all about reminders and resources, getting the word out. But early next year, MFA will be mandatory for all new users and anyone still using password-only logins. And then finally, by the end of 2025, even federated users will need to have MFA in place.
Makes it got to give people time to adjust, right? Especially, well, what was it? Like 70% of Google Cloud users already use MFA?
Yeah, something like that. So good adoption rate already, but this push for universal adoption, that's going to make a big difference in terms of security. I mean, it's a real pain for attackers.
I bet. If attackers are relying on stolen credentials or phishing attacks, MFA throws a wrench in their plans.
Exactly. Even if they manage to snag a password, that second authentication factor becomes a major roadblock.
So thinking bigger picture here, could this move by Google Cloud kind of force attackers to change tactics?
Absolutely. It might push them towards softer targets or to focus on new exploits that bypass MFA, or even back to more on-premises attacks where MFA might not be as common. It'll be interesting to see how things evolve.
And there's another interesting tidbit. Google is letting users leverage their primary identity provider for MFA.
Smart move, it gives organizations flexibility. Plus, it opens the door for wider adoption of things like passkeys, using biometrics or a hardware token instead of a password.
Yeah, I remember Google was pushing those phishing-resistant security keys years ago, back in, was it 2014?
Right, and now they've evolved into passkeys. So it's a clear sign that they're serious about moving beyond traditional passwords.
Security never stands still, does it? All right, on to our next headline. CrowdStrike is on a shopping spree. They just acquired Adaptive Shield, a SaaS security company.
Yeah, and for a cool $300 million, no less.
Whoa, what's so special about Adaptive Shield? What's CrowdStrike after?
Well, Adaptive Shield is a big name in SaaS security posture management, SSPM. They provide comprehensive security for over 150 SaaS applications, looking at misconfigurations, identity risks, data exposure, you name it.
So CrowdStrike is boosting its Falcon platform.
Absolutely. This move positions them as a major player in SaaS security, not just endpoint or cloud. They're aiming for end-to-end coverage.
Sounds like a pretty dominant position to be in.
Definitely. Imagine having all your security, from endpoints to the cloud to all your SaaS apps, managed from a single console. That's the power of integrating Adaptive Shield into Falcon. Streamlined security operations, faster incident response. It's a big deal.
Speaking of big operations, Interpol's Operations Synergia Seconded just wrapped up, and they snagged a massive haul. Over 22,000 malicious servers linked to phishing, ransomware, and info-stealer attacks, all taken down.
Yeah, it was a global effort, 95 Interpol member countries and a bunch of private sector partners like Group IB, Trend Micro, the big names.
Talk about teamwork.
Okay.
They analyzed something like 30,000 suspicious IP addresses and ended up taking down 76% of them.
The numbers are impressive. 59 physical servers seized, 41 arrests, 65 suspects still under investigation. It shows they're not just taking down servers, they're going after the people behind these attacks.
So any standout details from the operation? Anything particularly noteworthy?
Well, Hong Kong authorities alone were responsible for taking down over 1,000 servers. And in Estonia, they seized a whopping 80 gigabytes of data. That's a lot of evidence.
It's a powerful message to cybercriminals.
Wow.
Law enforcement is watching and collaborating globally. This isn't just about taking down infrastructure. It's about dismantling the entire criminal ecosystem.
Exactly. And remember, these attacks, phishing, ransomware, info stealers, they're often interconnected. Phishing is often that initial entry point, tricking someone into clicking a link or opening an attachment.
Right, and then bam, they're hit with ransomware or an info stealer that steals their data or paves the way for further attacks. It's a nasty chain reaction.
Exactly. They all work together, these different attack vectors, and this operation sends a clear message that law enforcement is getting better at understanding and disrupting these connections.
Okay, so let's talk about a specific ransomware case that's been making headlines. Remember the attack on Microchip Technology back in August? Well, the fallout from that is hitting their wallet pretty hard.
They're reporting a whopping $21.4 million in incident-related expenses so far, and that number could still climb. And, the Play ransomware gang claimed responsibility.
Yeah, and they didn't just encrypt data. They actually leaked a bunch of sensitive information when Microchip refused to pay.
4 gigabytes of data, including personal data, client documents, budget stuff, payroll information, even financial records. Talk about a nightmare scenario.
It's a stark reminder that the cost of these attacks goes way beyond just downtime and recovery.
And the fact that Play actually published the data, it suggests that Microchip held firm and didn't cave to the ransom demands.
Risky move. But maybe it sends a message to other ransomware groups that Microchip isn't an easy target for extortion. Though I can't imagine that decision was easy.
Tough call, for sure. But this incident underscores the importance of having a solid incident response plan, cyber insurance, and proactive security measures. The kind of stuff that helps you weather the storm when an attack hits.
Prevention is always better than cure, but sometimes you need that strong medicine to help you recover.
Exactly. Speaking of needing strong medicine, the Washington state court system is in crisis mode right now. They got hit with a cyber attack that's led to a statewide outage. They're scrambling to secure systems and get things back online.
Yeah, not a lot of details out there yet, but the Washington State Administrative Office of the courts did confirm that they detected some unauthorized activity last Sunday. Apparently, it's causing intermittent impacts on their website and other court systems.
They're saying essential functions are continuing, with minimal disruption, but the lack of specifics about the attack is a little worrying.
Makes you wonder about the nature of the attack and the potential damage. And we're seeing the real-world impact of this outage. In Pierce County, for instance, court services have been disrupted. Limited services, trouble accessing electronic records, issues with getting balance information for judgments, and finds it's a mess.
This whole situation highlights how vulnerable public infrastructure can be, especially when it comes to cyber attacks. The potential for disruption is huge, and this is a real wake-up call for government agencies to prioritize cybersecurity.
Okay, so for our final headline in this segment, we're heading down to Georgia, where a hospital has been forced to revert to pen and paper after a ransomware attack took down their electronic health record system.
Oh, wow. Back to the Stone Age.
Talk about a blast from the past. This attack targeted Memorial Hospital and Manor, and it really highlights how vulnerable healthcare organizations can be, especially smaller ones with limited resources.
Yeah, healthcare is a prime target for these kinds of attacks. They're dealing with sensitive data, they often have legacy systems, and there's a lot of pressure to keep things running smoothly. It's a tough combination.
So let's break down the timeline here. The attack was discovered early Saturday morning when their malware protection software started flashing red alerts. Luckily, they had downtime procedures in place and activated them quickly.
That's good to hear. At least they had a plan and were able to act fast.
Yeah, and they've been very transparent about the whole incident, emphasizing that patient care hasn't been impacted. But here's where things get interesting. The Embargo ransomware gang has stepped forward and claimed responsibility for the attack.
Embargo. They're a relatively new player in the ransomware game, but gaining notoriety fast. They're all about the double extortion tactic.
Double extortion.
Huh.
So not only encrypting data, but also threatening to leak it if the ransom isn't paid.
Exactly. And they're not messing around. They've threatened to release a massive 1.15 terabytes of data on November 8th if the hospital doesn't cough up the ransom.
That's a lot of data. And knowing that it could include sensitive patient information, the potential fallout from this leak is huge. It puts the hospital in a terrible position.
It's a no-win situation. Pay the ransom and risk funding further criminal activity, or refuse and potentially expose sensitive patient data. It's a tough call, and sadly, it's a scenario that's becoming all too common.
It really emphasizes why preventative measures are so crucial. It's not just about recovering from an attack. It's about stopping it before it even happens.
Right on. We've got to shift our mindset from reactive to proactive.
Okay, ready to move on from hospitals to something a little different.
Yeah, let's switch gears. What's next on our cybersecurity adventure? Let's head over to the world of industrial cybersecurity. Researchers at Georgia Tech have developed a new algorithm, PLC Hound. And this is making waves because it can uncover Internet-exposed industrial control systems, those programmable logic controllers. PLCs, you know?
PLCs, those are critical, right?
Yeah.
They control everything from power grids to manufacturing plants, even water treatment facilities.
Exactly, vital infrastructure. And traditionally, finding these exposed PLCs has been tough. Existing methods, they only find a small number, but PLC Hound, it's different. It uses natural language processing, machine learning, all that good stuff to analyze internet scan data.
Sounds sophisticated.
It is, and the results, amazing. They found 37 times more internet-connected PLCs than we thought were out there.
Wow, 37 times. That's a huge jump. Talk about a wake-up call for anyone managing critical infrastructure.
Totally. And the researchers, to their credit, they're not just hoarding this information. They're reaching out to the organizations with exposed PLCs, airports, hospitals, government entities, you name it.
Responsible disclosure, good to hear they're taking that approach.
Yep. And it's working. Within a month of being contacted, a good chunk of those organizations, something like 34%, they'd already reduced their exposed devices. Just shows how a little nudge can make a big difference.
Definitely. So it's a win-win. Organizations get to improve their security, researchers get to contribute to a safer world. But it does make you think, what if PLC Hound fell into the wrong hands?
Ooh, good point. If malicious actor got their hands on this, that's a scary thought. Imagine them being able to pinpoint vulnerable PLCs across critical infrastructure.
Yeah, the potential for damage, that's pretty unsettling. It's a reminder that even with good intentions, powerful tools can have a dark side.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears again. Back to the world of big tech and, you guessed it, more data privacy issues. Meta, Facebook's parent company, they've been hit with another fine. This time it's $15 million.
What did they do this time?
South Korea's privacy watchdog caught them red-handed, illegally collecting sensitive personal info from Facebook users.
Not surprising, honestly. But what kind of info are we talking about?
The sensitive stuff. Religion, political views, sexual orientation, all without getting users' consent, which in South Korea, with their strict privacy laws, is a big no-no.
Yeah, that's definitely crossing the line. So how are they getting this data? Were they just straight up asking users for it?
Nope, sneakier than that. They were inferring it. Analyzing user activity, things like what pages people liked, what ads they clicked on.
Wow, that's pretty invasive. Just by liking a page or clicking an ad, they're building up a detailed profile of your beliefs and interests. Kind of creepy.
Right. It raises some serious questions about transparency and user control over their data.
And the million-dollar question, will this fine actually change Meta's behavior? Or is it just the cost of doing business for them?
It's hard to say. Meta's been hit with massive fines before, billions even, for privacy violations. The pressure's building, but whether it'll lead to real change, well, that's yet to be seen.
All right, let's move on to a new threat that's been uncovered. Cybersecurity firm Hunters, they've discovered a new campaign they're calling Veal Drive, and it's all about exploiting legitimate Microsoft services for malicious purposes.
Ah, clever. Abusing trusted platforms, that's a classic tactic. Attackers love to blend in with legitimate traffic, stay hidden, and harder to detect.
So how does Veal Drive work? What's their MO?
They start by compromising accounts, probably through phishing attacks or previous data breaches. Then they use these compromised accounts to send very targeted spear phishing messages through Microsoft Teams.
So they're piggybacking on the trust people have in those communication platforms.
Exactly. And they're often impersonating IT staff or other trusted figures to trick users into taking actions that compromise their security.
And once they're in, what do?
All sorts of nasty stuff. They might share malicious ZIP files via SharePoint, for example, or even use Quick Assist for remote access to a victim's machine. They're basically weaponizing those collaboration tools that everyone uses every day.
Wow, turning those tools against us. Sneaky.
Yep. And it doesn't stop there. They're also using OneDrive for command and control, so they're hiding their malicious activity within a legitimate cloud storage service.
So they've got multiple ways to control infected machines, all while staying under the radar.
Exactly. And just to make things extra fun, they've even got a backup plan in case OneDrive gets blocked. They can switch to an HTTPS socket that connects to an Azure virtual machine for command execution.
They've really thought this through, haven't they? This layered approach. It's pretty sophisticated.
It is. It highlights the need for organizations to step up their game, review those security settings, scrutinize every external communication request, and definitely make sure your endpoint protection is top-notch.
No room for complacency in today's world. Okay, for our last story in this segment, let's dive into the world of gaming. There's a new threat making the rounds, a malicious command and control framework called WinOS 4.0, and it's found lurking within gaming applications.
Gamers, be warned. This one's a classic social engineering tactic. It preys on gamers' desires for, well, anything that gives them an edge. Game installers, speed boosters, optimization tools, you name it.
So they're disguising malware as something gamers actually want.
Exactly. They're spreading these malicious downloads through all the usual channels. Black hat SEO, social media promotions, even Telegram channels. They're going where the gamers are.
Makes sense. So how does this WinOS 4.0 thing actually work? What happens when someone downloads one of these infected apps?
Well, it's a multi-stage infection process. It all starts with a seemingly harmless BMP file. You know those image files?
Yeah, but I have a feeling it's not just an image.
You got it. It's actually a cleverly disguised executable file. And once it's on the system, it gets decoded into a DLL, which kicks off the real infection. Think of it like a digital Trojan horse.
Looks innocent on the outside, but it's packed with malicious code. Sneaky.
Yep. So then this DLL downloads and executes a shellcode payload, a tiny piece of code that can bypass security measures and give the attackers a foothold on the system.
And WinOS 4.0, this isn't just some basic malware, is it?
Oh no, it's way more sophisticated than that. It's a modular framework packed with all sorts of nasty capabilities. Stealing information, targeting cryptocurrency wallets, establishing backdoors, even downloading additional plugins from the attacker's server. It's like a cybercriminal's Swiss Army knife.
So bottom line, for all the gamers out there,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway here?
Be careful what you download, especially when it comes to game-related utilities. Always stick to reputable sources, official platforms like Steam or GOG, and avoid anything that seems too good to be true. That amazing speed boost might just come with a side of malware.
Good advice. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, especially online.
You got it. Stick to the official stuff, those reputable platforms. That's your best bet.
Speaking of best bets, it seems like Meta, Facebook parent company, just can't stay out of the headlines when it comes to data privacy issues. They've been hit with yet another fine, $15 million this time.
Yeah, South Korea's privacy watchdog slapped them with this one for illegally collecting sensitive personal information from Facebook users.
Meta seems to be a repeat offender when it comes to privacy. So what makes this case different? What do they do this time?
Well, it's the kind of information they were gathering that's particularly concerning. We're talking about sensitive stuff like religion, political views, sexual orientation.
That's pretty personal information. Did they at least get users' consent before collecting this data?
Nope, that's the problem. They collected it without explicit user consent, which is a big no-no, especially in South Korea, where they have those strict privacy laws.
So how were they getting this information if they weren't directly asking users for it?
They were inferring it,
Yeah.
analyzing things like what pages users liked, what ads they clicked on.
So just by liking a page or clicking an ad, they could build a profile of your beliefs and interests.
Pretty much. It's a subtle form of data collection, but it's still pretty invasive when you think about it. It raises concerns about how much Meta is tracking and profiling its users.
And it brings up that question again. Are these fines actually going to change Meta's behavior when it comes to data privacy? Or are they just writing them off as the cost of doing business?
It's hard to say. Meta has a history of privacy scandals and fines. They've paid billions in fines over the years, so the pressure is on, but whether it'll lead to real change, well, only time will tell.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the Cybersecurity HQ news for November 6th. It's been a wild ride through the world of cybersecurity, with everything from cloud security and ransomware attacks to the sneaky tactics of cybercriminals and the ongoing struggle for data privacy.
A lot to unpack, that's for sure. But the key takeaway is that the threat landscape is constantly changing and evolving. We all need to stay vigilant, stay informed, and be ready to adapt to whatever comes next.
And remember, Cybersecurity HQ is here to help you do just that. We're a community of over 70,000 cybersecurity professionals, all dedicated to sharing knowledge, insights, and resources.
Whether you're looking for new job opportunities, expert advice, or just want to stay up to date on the latest threats, Cybersecurity HQ has got you covered. We have job boards, expert insights, a trusted newsletter, all designed to help you stay ahead of the curve.
So join us and become part of the Cybersecurity HQ community. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and stay connected.